The lawyer pushed the final document in front of me, the metallic click of the pen cap against the desk ringing out sharply. Lawyer Ju's voice was as calm as his meticulously tailored silver-grey suit. "Miss Liu, please sign here." Once all the procedures were completed, the 1.2 trillion assets designated in your mother's will, held by the family trust, would be fully inherited by you and at your disposal, as per your mother's wishes. There is also a special gift, the deed and keys to the Cloud Retreat Manor on the peak of Nanshan Mountain. My hand was steady, not even glancing at the documents filled with zeros representing astronomical figures. The sound of the pen tip gliding across the paper was particularly clear in the vast family office conference room. This moment. I had waited for 3 years, from my mother's illness to her passing, and then the lengthy legal proceedings. For 3 years, I played the role of the obedient, transparent, and somewhat timid Mrs. Shun in the Shun family. My phone in my pocket vibrated once. Then again, I only took it out after signing my last name. It was a message from my best friend, Zhao Tian, sending several messages in a row, along with a live stream link. Zhao Tian said, "Zhao Yu, quick, watch the live stream of Shun Mo's company anniversary celebration. He's gone crazy." Zhao Tian added, "Don't get too worked up, don't rush over." Zhao Tian said, "That bitch Song Yuru is actually on stage, and she's wearing a gown. Her belly seems a bit noticeable." I clicked on the link, and the high-definition camera was focused on the center of the celebration stage. My husband, Shun Mo, was wearing the Armani custom suit I had ironed for him this morning, standing tall and full of spirit. Beside him stood his young and charming executive secretary, Song Yuru. She was wearing a soft white gown with a tailored cut, intentionally leaving space around her abdomen. One hand was tightly held by Shun Mo, while the other seemed to casually rest on her belly, her face betraying a mix of shyness and pride. The host's voice came through the live stream, deliberately stirring up excitement. "Today is not only the 15th anniversary of the founding of Shun Group, but it is also a double celebration for our CEO Shun. Let us invite CEO Shun to announce this wonderful news himself." Shun Mo took the microphone, his gaze sweeping over the well-dressed guests below the stage, finally resting affectionately on Song Yuru's face. That look I hadn't seen in a long time, at least not directed at me. Shun Mo began to speak, his voice echoing through the venue and clearly coming from my phone. "Thank you all for being here today. Taking this opportunity, I would like to officially introduce to you the lady beside me, Miss Song Yuru." He paused, gripping Song Yuru's hand tightly. "Yuru is not only my capable assistant but also the light of my life. We have been in love for a long time," and his tone grew even softer, filled with an indescribable pride. "Moreover, she is now 4 months pregnant with our child." A moment of silence filled the room below, followed by a buzz of whispered discussions that quickly gave way to deliberately loud congratulations. The camera swept past familiar faces, relatives of the Shun family, business associates, and the ladies who had once shown me either sympathy or disdain, all now wearing genuine or forced smiles of blessing. Shun Mo's voice continued, resolute, "So today, I, Shun Mo, solemnly declare that Miss Song Yuro is the lifelong partner I have chosen, the true wife of Shun Mo. I will handle unnecessary legal procedures as soon as possible to give Yuro and the child in her womb a rightful status. The unnecessary legal procedures naturally referred to me, and the marriage certificate I had barely held onto with him in the live broadcast." Song Yuro leaned perfectly into Shun Mo's embrace, her eyes glistening with what seemed like tears, as if she had endured much hardship but now saw the light. Applause broke out below, mingled with whistles and cheers. Lawyer Ju, who had clearly heard the commotion through my phone, adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, his expression unchanged. He gently placed the estate deed and a rustic bronze keybox in front of me. "Miss Liu, the procedures are all complete. From now on, you are the sole owner of all this. Additionally," he added, "the private security team, and he, left by your mother, has also been transferred. They are at your disposal at any time. The leader is Qin Yu, whom you've met." I closed my fountain pen, gathered the documents on the table, and placed them into the secure case handed to me by Lawyer Ju, picking up the heavy bronze key. The cool touch calmed the last ripple in my heart. "Uncle Ju." I looked up and smiled at the family lawyer who had watched me grow up. "Could you prepare another document for me, please? The divorce agreement." shares, property, cars, anything given to me by Shun Mo or the Shun family. I don't want a single thing. I only want to dissolve the marriage immediately. My voice was so calm that even I was a little surprised. Oh, and transfer back the 23 million that Shun Mo has been depositing into my personal account over the years, the so-called pocket money. With interest, return it to him. With the note gift return, all settled. Lawyer Ju's eyes flickered with a faint approval, not asking a single question. Understood, miss. The agreement will be delivered to your specified location within 30 minutes. I picked up the secure case and the key. The location will be the banquet hall of the Shun Corporation's anniversary celebration. I'll deliver it myself half an hour later. The celebration at the Hilton Hotel's banquet hall had transitioned into the cocktail reception. The atmosphere electric. Shun Mo had his arm around Song Yuro's waist, surrounded by a crowd offering toasts. Amidst the continuous flattery, Song Yuro's smile was sickly sweet, her hand always resting on her abdomen. When I walked into the grand, bustling hall alone, dressed in a simple beige trench coat and carrying a low-profile yet expensive secure case, the air seemed to freeze for a moment. Numerous gazes turned towards me, filled with surprise, doubt, and a mix of other emotions, all waiting to see what would unfold. Shun Mo also noticed me. His eyebrows twitched imperceptibly, then relaxed, replaced by a slightly charming yet subtly impatient professional expression. He whispered something to Song Yuro and then walked towards me. Jiao Yu, why are you here? His tone was relatively gentle but carried a distinct sense of distance, as if blaming me for being inappropriate. This isn't the right place for our matters, let's discuss it at home another day. Song Yuro followed closely behind Shun Mo, half a step back, looking at me with a mix of apology, sympathy, and a faint challenge. She whispered, Sister Lu, don't blame President Shun, it's all my fault. We chose today to avoid hurting you. After all, the child can't wait. Song Yuro's gaze directly landed on Shun Mo's face. No need to wait. My voice wasn't loud, but in the suddenly quieter banquet hall, it was enough for those nearby to hear. I took out the divorce agreement that Lawyer Ju had just faxed over, which I had already signed in the car, and handed it to Shun Mo. I've already signed the divorce agreement. As per your wishes, I didn't take anything from the Shun family. You can have your lawyer verify it. My tone was as casual as if commenting on the nice weather. Shun Mo was stunned. He probably didn't expect this reaction from me, nor did he expect me to bring the agreement here directly. He took the agreement, quickly flipped through it, and his expression changed slightly. The terms were clear and terrifyingly precise. I was practically leaving with nothing, even voluntarily giving up the property I could have legally fought for. This was completely different from the entanglement, crying, and bargaining he had anticipated. Jiao Yu, he hesitated, as if trying to find signs of anger or sadness on my face. I didn't give him the chance. I then took out my phone, operated a few buttons, and showed him the screenshot of the transfer being returned. The pocket money you've transferred to me over the years totals 23 million. Principal and interest have all been returned to your usual card. The note is clear. Gift returned. Shun Mo's face darkened completely. He felt things were slipping out of his control, especially in front of so many guests. My clean and almost patronizing return made his patronizing stance seem somewhat ridiculous. As for Miss Song, I finally glanced at Song Yuro, whose face had started to pale. My tone was calm. Congratulations on finally getting the position of Mrs. Shun you wanted. I hope you enjoy it. After that, I ignored them and turned to leave. Lu Jiaoyu, Shun Mo called out to me from behind, his voice raised with a barely noticeable panic and anger. What kind of attitude is this? Do you think acting so will change the facts? Without the Shun family, without me, you're nothing. What will you do in the future? I stopped under the dazzling crystal chandelier in the banquet hall, slightly turned my head, and the hem of my trench coat swept with a neat arc. I gently shook the ancient bronze key in my hand, its dull, mysterious luster reflecting under the light. I looked at him, my lips curling into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Shun Mo, I said, what happens next? That's my business, he replied. And who I am? I paused, my gaze sweeping over him, over Song Yuro clutching his arm, over all the guests holding their breath, watching. You'll find out soon enough. Without another word, I picked up the suitcase containing documents worth billions, and under countless watchful eyes, I walked straight out of the silent hall outside. The night was deep. A black Bentley Mulsanne glided silently to a stop in front of me. The driver, Chinyu, had a cold, sharp gaze. Chinyu got out, opened the door for me, and asked, "To the manor?" "Yes," I replied. I slid into the car, the soft leather seats enveloping me. The windows rose, cutting off the world that had oppressed me for 3 years. The car started smoothly and merged into the traffic. Leaning back in my seat, I closed my eyes. "Shenmo, the end you thought you saw is just the true beginning of my life. Lu Jiaoyu, the game is just starting." The car didn't head toward any familiar place in the city but drove straight to the winding mountain road of Nanshan on the outskirts. The only sound was the faint friction of tires on the ground, and the dense night and tree silhouettes on both sides. About 40 minutes later, the car passed through a highly concealed automatic sensor gate that almost blended into the mountain rock, and suddenly, the view opened up. Under the moonlight, a vast Chinese-style manor lay quietly on the flat top of the mountain, with white walls, black tiles, and upturned eaves. The landscape trees in the courtyard were graceful and charming in the night. In the distance, the main building glowed with warm, non-intrusive light. This was the Yunchi Manor. What my mother left me was not just property but a completely independent, secure, and undisturbed fortress. Chinyu parked the car in front of the main building, and immediately 2 middle-aged women in neat uniforms, with respectful and capable expressions, came forward. "Miss, welcome home," one said warmly. "I am the housekeeper, Wen, and this is the assistant housekeeper, Huai. Your room and daily necessities are all prepared, and you can rest at any time." The leading woman spoke softly, her eyes reflecting both nostalgia for the old master and respect for the new. I nodded. "Thank you for your hard work, Aunt Wen," and Huai led me into the main building. The interior was not excessively luxurious, yet it exuded a sense of depth and elegance everywhere. The artifacts on the multi-treasure shelves, the calligraphy and paintings on the walls, even the most inconspicuous ornaments, all subtly radiated the scent of time and value. Everything here was entirely different from the European opulence that the Shun family so eagerly flaunted. My room was on the east side of the second floor, with a large balcony that offered a panoramic view of the entire estate and the city lights below. Standing on the balcony, the night breeze was cool, and the distant city sparkled like a sea of stars. The location of the Shun Group building, which I had once been so familiar with, now seemed small and distant. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of birds chirping. Aunt Wen had already prepared a light and delicious breakfast. During the meal, Lawyer Ju called. "Miss, Shunmo's lawyer contacted me last night to confirm the validity of the divorce agreement. They were quite surprised but eager to make it effective immediately, so they're expediting the process." He paused. "Shunmo himself has been trying to find out your whereabouts through various channels since last night. He contacted your old friends and even your university mentor, but with no results. He seems a bit anxious." I sipped my porridge slowly. "What's he anxious about? Isn't he getting what he wanted?" Lawyer Ju's voice carried a hint of a cold smile. "The 23 million he returned has been credited to your account, but the movement of this money triggered some risk control alerts on his personal account. Combined with your actions at the banquet last night, he's starting to doubt whether you're truly penniless. More importantly, he might have realized that an ex-wife who is beyond his control and reacts completely out of his expectations is a potential trouble. Let him look." I wiped the corner of my mouth. "The Dark Society will handle the traces." "Right, don't worry, Chinyu is an expert. All the paths you don't want to be discovered have already been cleaned or covered within Shunmo's. Even the entire Shun family's information network, Lu Jiaoyu, from the moment she signed last night, has already disappeared reasonably and naturally. They can at most trace that you used your old identity to buy a long-distance bus ticket to a remote tourist city, and then the trail ends." Hanging up the phone, I changed into comfortable yet well-tailored home clothes and walked into the study within the estate. Here, the core management system of the family trust had already been connected. On the giant screen, data streams quietly rolled, representing assets and equity distributed across different fields and industries worldwide. This was the true core of the 120 billion inheritance. the veins of a vast and low-profile commercial empire, I needed time to learn and take over. My mother had left me the most professional advisory team, and for the next few months, this would be the focus of my life. Meanwhile, Shunmo's world was beginning to crack. First was Song Yuro. After moving into Shunmo's top-tier apartment as the would-be Mrs. Shun, she grew impatient with waiting. She wanted a grand wedding, an immediate move into the Shun family's ancestral home, control of Shunmo's supplementary card, and to erase all traces of Lu Xiaoyue's existence. She cooed, clinging to Shunmo's arm. "Mo Gij, look how cleanly Lu Jiejie left. Maybe she's already found her next stop. We should hurry up with the formalities, too. Besides, this apartment is nice, but it's where you two used to live. I feel a bit uncomfortable here, being pregnant. Shouldn't we move to a new place, or straight to the ancestral home? Grandpa has always wanted a great-grandchild, hasn't he?" Shunmo was utterly vexed by the company's affairs and the search for my whereabouts, showing impatience towards Song Yuro for the first time. "Yuro, let's talk about these things later. The old house is where Grandpa lives. How can we just move out on a whim? As for the wedding, we have to wait until the divorce certificate is officially issued before we can start planning." "What's the rush?" Song Yuro's eyes reddened with grievance. "What's the rush? I'm only thinking of you and the child. Everyone outside knows I'm with you now, but legally, I'm still a mistress who can't see the light of day. Do you know how those society ladies talk about me behind my back? Shunmo, now that you've gotten what you wanted, are you no longer cherishing it?" Shunmo pinched the bridge of his nose, trying to soften his tone. All right, it's my fault. Just give me a little more time to deal with Lu Xiaoyue's matter. I need to find her and ask her some questions to clear things up. Only then will I feel at ease. What's there to ask? She's just putting on an act of being aloof, trying to make you feel guilty." Song Yuro muttered, though a flicker of unease crossed her mind. Lu Xiaoyue's behavior last night had been far too unusual. Shunmo's search efforts were completely thwarted. The people he sent to investigate reported that Lu Xiaoyu was last seen on camera boarding a bus at the long-distance bus station heading to an ancient town in the southwest. However, there were gaps in the surveillance footage along the bus route, and no clear image of her getting off at the terminal station was captured. The trail went cold there. She no longer appeared at the bookstore, gallery, or cafe she used to frequent. Her phone number had been disconnected, and all her social media accounts had been deactivated or deleted, as if she had evaporated into thin air. What made Shunmo even more uneasy were the business matters. Two important deals that were nearly finalized suddenly became ambiguous, with the other parties delaying the signing. The renewal process for a bank loan nearing its due date also inexplicably slowed down, and the credit department manager's attitude was no longer as enthusiastic. Subtle rumors about Shun Group's cash flow and Shunmo's personal credibility began circulating in the market. Though they hadn't yet caused a major stir, they were enough to send a chill down the spine of the keen-sensed Shunmo that afternoon. Shunmo finally heard a vague remark from a distant relative who had once met Lu Xiaoyue's mother. After a few drinks, the relative mumbled, "Lu Xiaoyue's mother is no ordinary woman. Back in the day, she seemed to have quite a background, but for some reason, she married quietly later on. I heard she has some property in the southern mountains." Shunmo seized this vague clue. He recalled that when Lu Xiaoyu left last night, she seemed to be clutching an ancient-looking key. He immediately used his connections to inquire about high-end properties in the southern mountain area, especially those not publicly listed and belonging to private, inherited estates or clubs. After expending considerable effort and money, he finally bought an unverified piece of information from a seasoned real estate agent. There was an extremely private estate area at the top of the southern mountains, belonging to an ancient family trust. Recently, it seemed a new owner had moved in, and the security level had been raised to an astonishing degree. Even approaching for a closer look would result in being driven away. The estate was rumored to be called Yunqi. Shunmo's heart raced. He immediately drove to the southern mountains, but just as the information had warned, the entrance to the private road leading to the mountaintop estate was nowhere to be found. On the navigation map, the area appeared as a blank space. He tried driving based on memory and general direction but was stopped halfway up the mountain by an automatic gate that seemed unremarkable yet was incredibly sturdy. Two tall, stern-faced security guards in black uniforms emerged from a nearby guard post. Private property. No entry without invitation. The guard's voice was flat, but his eyes swept over Shun Mo and his car like a blade. Shun Mo rolled down the car window, trying to summon his usual air of authority. "I'm Shun Mo of the Shun Group. There might be some misunderstanding. I'd like to visit the owner of Yunshi Manor. Without an appointment or clearance, no one is allowed in." The security guard interrupted him, his tone unyielding. "Please leave immediately." Shun Mo's face fell. "Do you know the Shun Group? Let me speak with your master or whoever's in charge." The guard said nothing, just coldly stared at him, one hand resting on a device resembling a communicator at his waist. Another guard emerged from the booth, his posture full of vigilance and intimidation. Shun Mo looked at the seemingly impenetrable defense before him and the situation where his expensive car was useless here, a mix of frustration, anger, and growing unease welling up inside him. How could Lu Jiaoyi be connected to a place like this? That key, that manor. He had to reverse his car and leave. In the rearview mirror, the gate and the guards grew smaller. As if separating two worlds. Back at the company, Shun Mo wearily sat in his office when his phone rang. It was Song Yuro. "Shun Mo, the property management suddenly came and said the owner of this apartment issued a notice to reclaim the house, giving us a week to move out. What's going on? Isn't this your house?" Song Yuro's voice was shrill and panicked, and Shun Mo's head buzzed. This top-tier apartment was indeed purchased under the name of his personal company, but for tax and asset allocation reasons, the actual ownership was registered under an offshore fund, the sole beneficiary of which was Lu Jiaoyi. This was a legal structure he personally arranged as a gesture of sincerity and love during their marriage. Later, he had forgotten about it, as Lu Jiaoyi never inquired, and all the expenses were always paid by him. He thought Lu Jiaoyi had left with nothing, relinquishing all of Shun's possessions, but legally, this apartment had never fully belonged to the Shun family. Lu Jiaoyi wasn't disappearing, she was reeling in the net. The first thread had been gently pulled. Shun Mo looked out the window at the gradually darkening sky, feeling for the first time that something was slipping completely out of his control, and he didn't even know where his opponent was or who they were. The silent world crumbled at an astonishing speed over the following week. First came the lawyer's letter commissioned by the property owner of the apartment, worded with rigorous and cold precision, demanding that the illegal occupant vacate within a specified period or face legal enforcement measures and compensation claims. Song Yuro cried and made a scene, forcing Shun Mo to temporarily relocate her to a high-end hotel. However, this extra expense and blow to his reputation were just the beginning. Shortly after, several core projects of the Shun Group simultaneously ran into trouble. The overseas merger and acquisition deal that had been negotiated for over half a year was suddenly and indefinitely suspended by the other party at the final signing stage, citing concerns about the Shun Group's recent commercial reputation and decision-making stability. Domestically, their largest partner, Hongyuan Construction, announced without any warning that it would suspend all new project negotiations with the Shun Group and slow down payment schedules for two ongoing projects under the guise of process optimization. News from the banks was even worse. The renewal of a 50 million yuan loan, previously considered a sure thing, was formally rejected on the grounds of uncertainties in the company's cash flow assessment and collateral value. To make matters worse, another major cooperative bank called, hinting that a 30 million yuan short-term bridge loan might not be extended as scheduled and requesting Shun Mo to prepare for early repayment. Shun Mo mobilized all his connections, hosting banquets and humbling himself, but those who had once called him brother now either avoided him, spoke in bureaucratic tones, or bluntly asked, "Mr. Shun, it's not that I won't help you, but the winds seem to have shifted this time. Have you offended someone you shouldn't have, someone he shouldn't have offended?" The first image that flashed into Shun Mo's mind was Lu Jiaoyu's calm, expressionless face and the ancient key in her hand. Yet, he couldn't bring himself to believe that the woman who had been docile and almost invisible by his side for 3 years could wield such power. This felt more like a massive, hidden force, targeting the Shun family with precision for reasons unknown to him. Could it really be related to Lu Jiaoyu's mysterious mother? Just as he was overwhelmed, trying to mortgage personal assets and equity to secure cash flow, The market was suddenly flooded with detailed and alarming analysis reports about the Shun Group's financial crisis. These reports pointed directly to inflated key financial data and underlying risks, causing the stock price to plummet. It hit the daily limit down for 3 consecutive trading days, wiping out nearly 4 billion yuan in market value and triggering panic selling among small and medium shareholders. Dissenting voices also began to emerge within the board of directors. In the hotel, Song Euro watched Shun Mo's increasingly gloomy expression and dared not mention the wedding or the mansion again. She could only cautiously serve tea and water, but the anxiety and calculation in her eyes were crystal clear to Shun Mo. Did this woman love him, or the wealth and status he represented? That afternoon, Shun Mo received the final phone call. The one that crushed all his pride. It was from his father, old Master Shun, calling from the nursing home. The old man's voice was aged and weary, carrying an unprecedented severity and disappointment. Shun Mo, I ask you, just how much trouble have you stirred up out there? Just now, the head of the Asian division of Universal Capital personally called this retired old man, polite but with every word cutting like a knife. They said they were sorry to see the current situation of the Shun Corporation. Based on risk control principles, they decided to withdraw all the funds they invested in our new energy sector 3 years ago. And according to the terms of the bet agreement, we are required to repurchase all their preferred shares in cash. Shun Mo was struck like lightning. Universal Capital is a top global venture capital firm, and bringing in their investment was the most glorious move for the Shun Corporation back then. Also the most satisfying achievement before the old man retired. Their withdrawal and the consequences are not just an 800 million cash black hole but also a devastating signal. Even a death sentence from the top capital. Dad, my throat is dry and painful. Don't call me Dad. The old man on the other end of the phone started coughing violently, although they didn't say it explicitly. The implication was because of you, because of your personal moral failings, because of your improper handling of family issues, which brought immeasurable reproductive risks and potential legal hazards to the company. Shun Mo, I handed the company to you to expand and grow, not to let you ruin the Shun family's generations of foundation for a woman. Lu Jiaoyu, you insisted on marrying her back then, and now you treat her like this. Do you really know her? The old man's words stopped abruptly, as if he was holding back, finally turning into a long sigh and even more violent coughing. The mess you made, you solve it yourself. If you can't solve it, you don't have to be the president anymore. The phone was hung up harshly, and Shun Mo stood there holding the buzzing phone, feeling icy cold all over. The old man's unfinished words at the end, like a poisonous snake, crept into his heart. Do you really know her? Know what about her? Know that her mother is not ordinary. Know that she might have some background. No, he didn't know. He never cared to know. He married Lu Jiaoyu initially because she was gentle and quiet, with a clean and simple background. At least it seemed so, unlike other socialites who might bring him trouble or ambition. Later, it was because he got used to her obedience and care, like a comfortable old piece of clothing. He never really tried to understand her past, her mother, any stories about her that had nothing to do with his business empire. But now, all these disasters seemed to point inexorably toward the woman he had scornfully abandoned. A mix of immense panic, absurdity, and a sense of being deceived gripped him. He had to find Lu Jiaoyu, had to get to the bottom of it. He went mad, trying again to find clues, offering high rewards, using connections in the gray areas. Finally, he obtained an address from a broker specializing in buying and selling confidential information, Nanshan Yunqi Manor, along with a cryptic warning, Mr. Shun, even if you find the place, I advise you to be polite. The person living there is not someone we can afford to offend. Giving you the address is already a huge risk. When he received the address, precise down to the door number, the window outside was already flashing with lightning and thunder, the rain pouring down in torrents. Shun Mo didn't care about anything else. He grabbed his car keys, not even taking an umbrella, and dashed into the torrential rain. The rain furiously washed the windshield, and even with the wipers at their fastest, the road ahead was barely visible. Shun Mo's hands were trembling, not from the cold, but from a fear and urgency close to uncovering the truth. The mountain road, treacherous in the rain at night, didn't slow his speed. He arrived again at that hidden area. This time, The automatic gate stood silent in the heavy rain. The guardhouse lit up. Shunmo's car screeched to a halt. He pushed open the door and stumbled into the rain, instantly drenched. I need to see Lu Jiaoyu, let me in. I know she's here. Shunmo pounded on the sturdy gate, his voice hoarse and distorted by the rain. The guardhouse door opened, and Qinyu stepped out, still dressed in black, holding a black umbrella, his expression as cold and unyielding as a rock. He looked at the drenched, disheveled Shunmo without a flicker of emotion. Mr. Shun, please leave. The person you're looking for isn't here. Qinyu's voice was colder than the rain. You're lying. Shunmo's eyes were bloodshot, rain streaming down his pale cheeks, making it impossible to tell if it was rain or something else. I know she's inside. Lu Jiaoyu, come out and explain who you really are, what you've done to me. He tried to rush in, but Qinyu merely stepped forward, casually raising a hand to block. Shunmo felt an irresistible force, stumbling back several steps, nearly falling into a puddle. This is illegal confinement. I'm calling the police, Shunmo roared, his despair and anger causing him to speak without restraint. Qinyu's eyes flickered with a wary sneer, as if he had heard something amusing. He took out a waterproof small tablet, quickly operated it, and then held it up in front of Shunmo. The screen displayed key screenshots of news and internal documents about the collapse of Shun's group's stock price, terminated partnerships, bank collection notices, and even a blurry image of Song Euro anxiously making a phone call in a hotel room. Mr. Shun, Qinyu's voice was calm and unwavering, each word cutting deep. Do you think the police would be more concerned with a legal property owner refusing an unwelcome visitor on private property, or with the series of issues involving a listed company president whose personal moral and decision-making failures have brought the enterprise to the brink of bankruptcy, potentially harming shareholder interests? Shunmo felt as if he had been struck, staring blankly at the evidence on the screen, his strength seemingly drained. The mess he had desperately tried to hide was now so casually exposed. Let him out, please. Let me see him. I just want to ask one question. Shunmo's voice dropped, carrying an unspoken plea that even he wasn't aware of. He had never been so humble in his life. Qinyu took back the tablet, no longer looking at him, and turned to walk back to the guardhouse. Shunmo stood in the pouring rain, gazing at the road behind the gate that led to the mountaintop estate, its warm glow now seeming like an unreachable dream. Coldness and despair engulfed him completely. Suddenly, his knees gave way, and he fell heavily to the ground, mixed with rain and mud. The rain pounded on him as he looked up, shouting with all his strength toward the light on the mountaintop, his voice broken and desperate, piercing through the heavy rain. Lu Jiaoyu, come out. Tell me, who is your father? This cry seemed to drain all his soul. He knelt in the mud, his shoulders shaking violently, whether from crying or gasping for breath, his expensive suit stained with dirt, his hair disheveled, no trace left of the former glory of the Shun Group's president. Just as his consciousness was about to be swallowed by the cold and despair, two warm and steady car lights slowly lit up from the dark tree-lined path inside the gate leading to the estate. A black Bentley, like a king of the night, silently glided out. After stopping inside the gate, the window slowly lowered halfway. Shunmo suddenly looked up, the rain blurring his vision, but he could still see the familiar yet unfamiliar face behind the window. Now clear and calm, Lu Jiaoyu sat in the warm, dry carriage, draped in a soft cashmere shawl, her calm gaze looking down at him kneeling in the muddy downpour. There was no joy, no anger, not even pity in his eyes, only an unfathomable indifference, as if he were looking at a stranger who no longer mattered. Shunmo's breath caught. The sound of rain hitting the roof was completely cut off from the outside world. Inside the carriage, it was warm and dry, with only the faint scent of incense and the steam rising from the in-my-bone china teacup slowly swirling around. I sat in the car, quietly watching him through the half-open window, watching the man who had always stood tall and confident before me, even with a hint of condescending superiority, now kneeling like a stray dog in the cold, biting mud. His expensive suit was soaked and deformed, his hair clinging messily to his pale forehead. Rain, mixed with perhaps other things, kept streaming down his face. His eyes were bloodshot, staring fiercely at me, filled with shock, pleading, humiliation, and deeper still, an unconcealed fear and madness. Time seemed to freeze for a few seconds. With only the sound of the rain filling the space between us, Shun Mo's lips trembled, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't form a complete sound. He might have imagined countless scenarios of finding me, my cries, my anger, my pleading, or even me showing up with a new backer to gloat. But none of them were like this. I was so calm, so high above, as if he were just an insignificant extra in a poorly written drama. I gently blew on in my cup, took a sip, and the warm liquid slid down my throat, dispelling the last trace of chill brought by the rainy night. Shun Mo, I finally spoke. My voice clear and calm through the rain, without any fluctuation. You'll catch a cold if you stay in the rain. I instructed Chinyu, get Mr. Shun an umbrella. Chinyu, who had somehow already appeared at the gate with a large black umbrella, held it above Shun Mo's head, but she herself remained standing in the rain, her posture as straight as a gun, the umbrella completely shielding Shun Mo. This act itself carried an unmistakable, ritualistic sense of distance and control. Shun Mo was made even more humiliated and embarrassed by this gesture. He violently tried to push the umbrella away, but Qinyu's hand was as steady as a rock, and the umbrella didn't budge. Lu Jiaoyu. Shun Mo's voice finally broke through his throat, hoarse and sharp. What game are you playing? What have you done to my company? How could you possibly be here? What is this place? What exactly is this place? I didn't answer his questions. I just set down my teacup and looked out the car window at the dimly visible outline of the manor house in the distance, barely visible through the rain. This place, I said slowly, is one of the homes my mother left me. I used to come here often during my winter and summer vacations as a child, but later, as my mother's health declined, I came less frequently. And then, after marrying you, I never came back here once in 3 years. I turned back to look at him. Speaking of which, I have to thank you. If it weren't for your haste to make room for Songyuran, I might not have made up my mind so quickly to come back and take over these troubles. Taking over trouble. Shun Mo's pupils contracted sharply as he grasped a key word but completely failed to understand its implications. What are you accepting? Where did you get the money? Isn't your mother just an ordinary middle school teacher? An ordinary middle school teacher? I tilted my head slightly, as if hearing an interesting claim. Who told you that? You or your mother, who loves to pry into people's backgrounds? Shun Mo's face paled slightly. Back then, the Shun family had indeed investigated my background. The investigation report stated that my mother was a deceased middle school teacher. My father had passed away early, and our family was poor but honest. This fit the Shun family's expectations for a docile and easily controlled daughter-in-law. But sometimes, investigation reports are just what others want you to see. My tone remained unruffled. My mother's surname is Lu. Her name is Lu Mingjun. She did indeed teach at a middle school, which was her interest, but she was also the only daughter of Lu Qingyuan, the founder of Huanyu Capital, and one of the designated heirs of the previous generation of Yunqi Lujia. Huanyu Capital, Lu Qingyuan. Shun Mo repeated the name, each syllable like an ice pick striking his heart. The same Lu Qingyuan who had just delivered a fatal blow to the Shun Corporation, the top venture capitalist who was a legend in the global capital and energy sectors, yet rarely appeared in public, a shadowy power broker. No, this can't be true. Shun Mo shook his head violently, rain splashing around. If you were Lu Qingyuan's granddaughter, how could you have possibly spent 3 years in my home like that? He wanted to say humble and submissive, resigned to adversity, but those words burned his throat. I smiled lightly, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. What do you mean like that? Is it preparing breakfast and suits for you every day? Remembering the birthdays and preferences of your parents and siblings? Sitting quietly in the corner during your family gatherings while your mother and relatives mock me, openly or subtly, and still smiling without saying a word? Or is it knowing that the perfume on your shirt is never from a brand I use, yet choosing to close my eyes? My voice was soft, but it struck Shun Mo like a whip. Those 3 years with Shun Mo, it wasn't that I couldn't, it was that I didn't want to. I stared directly at his twisted face, shocked and disbelieving. My mother had hoped for a simple, peaceful life for me, far from the family's turmoil. I had once naively thought that perhaps an ordinary marriage could bring me warmth. So I retracted all my feathers, removed all my claws, and tried to be the good wife you, Shun Mo, wanted. I even truly had expectations for you. I paused, took a breath, and the air was filled with the warm scent of black tea, until you stood before everyone, holding a pregnant Song Yuru, announcing that she was your true love, your real wife, until I watched the live broadcast and realized that my 3 years of effort and endurance were, in your eyes, merely a cheap performance that could be called off at any moment. With a replacement already lined up, Shunmo's body began to tremble, whether from the cold or something else. He wanted to explain, to say that it was just for show, that he and Song Yuru were just, but any excuse seemed pale and ridiculous in the face of my calm narration. So I woke up, I concluded, my tone hardening again. I signed the papers, reclaiming what belonged to me, Lu Jiaoyu, my surname, my identity, and everything I should have had. Those were the silent voices trembling, pointing to the content that Qin Yu had previously shown on his tablet. Universe Capital withdrew its investment, Hongyuan paused cooperation, banks called in loans, and stock prices plummeted. It's all because of you. I raised an eyebrow slightly, finding his question rather amusing. What's with the saying business is like war, your own decision-making errors, your bankrupt credibility, and the business choices made by your partners based on risk considerations? How can you blame me for that? I leaned forward slightly, my gaze locking onto him through the rain. I merely made a few courtesy calls as the new heir of the Yunqi Lu family to some old friends, like the uncles and aunts at Universe Capital, Grandpa Li at Hongyuan, and a few bank chairmen. I also shared some very objective opinions about certain local enterprises, particularly their management's personal ethics and decision-making risks. Oh, and I just remembered, you sent people to look for me everywhere and even tried some illegal means to investigate my privacy, which made me feel very unsafe, so my security team just took some necessary defensive measures, like submitting some leads to the relevant authorities about possible irregularities in Shun Group's business competition and information collection practices. I believe that's also the duty of a law-abiding citizen, right? Shunmo collapsed completely, and if he weren't kneeling, he might not have been able to hold himself up. All his pride, all his understanding, was crushed to pieces at this moment. He thought he had discarded a useless vase, but he didn't know he had pushed away a gold mountain that the Shun family could never reach in 10 lifetimes, and had invited a disaster that would wipe them out. The poor girl he thought he had was actually the true heir of a top-tier wealthy family. The leaving with nothing he thought he had was his disdain for taking even a speck of dust from the Shun family. The business attacks he thought were just a few casual greetings and opinions. The immense absurdity and overwhelming despair engulfed him. Why? He asked hoarsely, his eyes vacant. Why didn't you tell me earlier? If you had told me you were from the Lu family, I would have. His voice broke, and for the first time, there was a clear chill in his tone. What would you have done after telling me? Immediately show me affection. Turn a blind eye to Song Yuru and the child in her belly. Shunmo, don't think of yourself as so deep in love, and don't think I'm that naive. What I've always wanted is not fake affection bought by family background. Besides, I leaned back against the chair, regaining my indifferent posture. My mother didn't want me to rely on the Lu family, and I also wanted to see if, stripped of all the halos, just as Lu Jiaoyu, I could gain a little sincerity. The fact is, I couldn't. So now, using the identity and power of the Lu family feels quite natural. The silence inside the car contrasted sharply with the torrential rain outside. Shunmo knelt there, as if his soul had been sucked away. Finally, he struggled to ask the question that had been burning in his chest since last night, his voice barely audible. Who is your father? I looked at him, so fixated on the last mystery, and suddenly felt a bit pitiful. My father, I stated calmly, is surnamed Lu, with a single name, Yi. The name Lu Yi might not ring a bell for you. He rarely appears in the public eye. He mainly handles some of the family's more fundamental but also more critical sectors, such as energy, shipping, and investments in certain military-related fields. The lead company for that mega infrastructure project in the Middle East that your Shun Corporation desperately wanted to get into last year, it was ultimately headed by an offshore company under my father's control. Shunmo's breathing stopped completely. The name Lu Yi was indeed unfamiliar to him, but the level of influence represented by the description lead party of a super-large infrastructure project in the Middle East far exceeded the limits of his imagination. It was a true giant capable of shaping regional dynamics. my father, Lu Yi, and my mother, Lu Mingjun. I am the sole legitimate third-generation heir of the Lu family, a status that towers countless dimensions above the wealthy families Shen Mo could ever comprehend. So, Shen Mo, I cast him one final glance, a look that likely bore some resemblance to the unintentionally condescending judgment he once directed at me. Now you know exactly who your father was, the answer you've been so desperate to uncover, but this answer holds no significance for you or the Shen family anymore. I pressed the button, and the car window began to rise slowly. For the sake of our 3 years as husband and wife, I'll leave you with 2 final words on this last meeting. As the window narrowed to a mere slit, my voice carried out clearly, first, all interventions regarding your company end here. What follows is simply the natural outcome of market forces and the Shen family's own inherent issues. Take care of yourself second, do not appear before me again, and do not attempt to disrupt my life, otherwise. The methods employed by an he to resolve issues will be far more direct than any business tactics. The window sealed shut completely. Qin Yu, escort Mr. Shen down the mountain, drive safely, I instructed. Yes, miss, Qin Yu replied, firmly planting the umbrella in her hand into the ground beside Shen Mo before turning briskly and returning inside the gate. The black Bentley started silently, executed a smooth U-turn, and headed toward the warm glow atop the mountain, leaving Shen Mo, kneeling in the muddy downpour, utterly broken. Behind in the darkness and cold, in the rearview mirror, his figure grew smaller and smaller, eventually vanishing behind the curtain of rain and the winding road. I withdrew my gaze and picked up the cup of black tea, still at the perfect temperature. The rainy night was still long, but for some, the dawn would never come again. Life at the mountaintop estate was quiet and orderly, with the assistance of my advisory team. I spent nearly a month gaining a fundamental understanding of the family's business operations and began making small decisions. Qin Yu and her and he team ensured my life remained as impenetrable as a fortress. After that night with Shen Mo, no unwelcome individuals or vehicles appeared near the estate. Yet, I knew the outside world had been turned upside down. Following a brief technical rebound, the Shen Group's stock price continued its steady decline, with its market value shrinking by over 60%. The bank debt snowballed, and the collection letters from suppliers piled up on Shen Mo's desk. To maintain cash flow, Shen Mo began selling his personal collection of calligraphy, paintings, and antiques, and even mortgaged part of the ownership of the Shen family's ancestral home. Those who once flocked around him now avoided him like the plague. Song Euro had long moved out of the luxury hotel, settling into a slightly remote but still lavishly decorated high-rise apartment that Shen Mo had purchased years ago. It was still under his name and, for now, unaffected. Although she no longer mentioned the wedding or the title of Mrs. Shen, her fear and complaints grew daily. Shen Mo's increasingly rare presence and worsening temper made her question whether she had bet on the wrong horse. It was time. I had Wenny prepare a gown, not the subdued and soft styles that had to cater to Shen Mo's taste when we were in the Shen family, but a deep green velvet long dress handmade by an Italian master who had collaborated with my late mother. It had been stored in the manor's wardrobe for years, with a calm and noble color, a cut that was extremely simple yet perfectly accentuated the lines, and subtle dark patterns at the hem that shimmered faintly under the light. Like the surface of a midnight lake, the jewelry was a set of jade passed down from the Lu family, the color of imperial green, heavy and substantial, priceless without the need for excessive gemstone inlays. Lawyer Ju called, Miss. The movable and immovable properties registered under Song Euro's name that you instructed us to monitor have been verified. They include a 180 square meter apartment in the city center, a pink Porsche sports car, and several pieces of jewelry and luxury bags, all purchased in the past 2 years with a total value of about 28 million. The funds came from Shen Mo's personal account or shell companies under his control. Excellent. I put on the last jade earring in front of the mirror. Notify Hungtai Law Firm, which we control, to officially send a lawyer's letter to Song Euro on the grounds of jointly owned marital property being concealed and improperly disposed of, infringing on the legitimate property rights of the spouse. Demand that she return all the above properties within 48 hours, or we will immediately file a criminal civil lawsuit and apply for property preservation. Understood. Also, Shunmo and Song Euro are confirmed to attend tonight's charity auction gala hosted by the Maritime Fund. They need this opportunity to salvage some image and find a lifeline. The invitation has already been sent under the name of the Yunqi Lu family representative. I looked at the transformed version of myself in the mirror, smiled, and thought, it's time to meet some old friends at 8 o'clock in the evening. The banquet hall of Haiyun Hotel, one of the city's top social venues, was aglow with crystal chandeliers, filled with the scent of perfume and the murmur of soft piano music and low conversations. But when I, in my deep green velvet gown and striking imperial green jade at my neck and ears, entered the hall flanked by Qin Yu and Lawyer Ju, the entire room fell silent for a moment. Many curious and probing glances turned toward us, followed by even more heated whispers. Everyone present knew Shunmo's ex-wife, but the Lu Jiaoyu they saw now was a world apart from the woman who had always followed Shunmo quietly, dressed in simple makeup and clothes. The composure, nobility, and subtle sense of pressure that exuded from her very bones were qualities that no amount of designer clothing could ever create. Shunmo and Song Euro stood by the champagne tower not far away. Shunmo was wearing a custom-tailored suit that was clearly rushed and ill-fitting, his face haggard with deep-set eyes. Song Euro, on the other hand, wore a pink strapless cocktail dress, trying hard to project a sweet and charming vibe, but the unease in her eyes and her deliberately stiffened posture betrayed her nervousness. They had clearly noticed me too. Shunmo's body instantly tensed, and the champagne glass in his hand trembled almost imperceptibly, nearly spilling its contents. Song Euro's eyes widened as she stared fixedly at my dress and the jade, her face draining of color. Her hand instinctively flew to her neck, where she wore a diamond necklace Shunmo had given her last year, now appearing cheap and laughable in comparison. I didn't approach them immediately. Instead, I first exchanged pleasantries with several elders from old family connections who had come forward to greet me. People I'd met once at my mother's funeral. Lawyer Ju took the opportunity to introduce me. This is Miss Lu Jiaoyu, the only daughter of the late MS, Lu Mingzhen, and the current representative of the Yunqi Lu family. The words Yunqi Lu family were like a boulder dropped into a calm lake, sending ripples spreading rapidly. The expressions of those who had been watching from a distance immediately changed, and they approached with warmer, more respectful smiles. Several people who had been reluctantly conversing with Shunmo quickly found excuses to leave and turned their attention to me. I could feel the air around Shunmo growing cold and thin before the auction began. There was a free mingling period. Holding a glass of sparkling water, I finally made my way to that corner. Mr. Shun, Miss Song, it's been a while. How have you been? My tone was as flat as if I were greeting strangers. Shunmo's Adam's apple bobbed as he tried to force a dignified smile, but it looked more like a grimace. Miss Lu, it's been a long time. You look very different today. Song Euro, meanwhile, strained to muster a smile, her voice slightly shrill. Sister Lu, your outfit is so extravagant. That jade looks quite impressive. Is it a high-quality replica? The craftsmanship these days is truly remarkable. As soon as she spoke, the ladies and young women nearby who had been eavesdropping exchanged subtle glances, some even covering their mouths with light giggles. It was rare to see someone so utterly clueless. I ignored Song Euro, my gaze fixed on Shunmo's face. Mr. Shun, you don't look well. The company must be very busy lately. Shunmo's cheek muscles twitched, and red streaks appeared in his eyes. Thanks to you, we haven't gone bankrupt yet. I raised an eyebrow slightly at his words. Business is all about capability. I simply returned to my own home and inherited some ancestral property. How could that possibly affect Mr. Shun's vast conglomerate, unless the foundation of Mr. Shun's group is that unstable? My words left Shunmo's face pale with anger, but he couldn't utter a single word in rebuttal. Just then, Song Euro's phone rang sharply. She glanced at the caller ID, an unknown number, and initially wanted to hang up. However, the eyes of those around her made it awkward to do so, so she stepped aside to answer. Hello, who is this? Her tone was impatient. The voice on the other end was clear and forceful, and because the surroundings had suddenly quieted down, it faintly carried over. Is this Miss Song Euro? This is Hungtai Law Firm. You have received the lawyer's letter we sent. We hereby formally notify you regarding the property under your name at Unit 2001, Building 7, Tsuehu Tiendi, as it is suspected to have been purchased for you by Mr. Shenmo using marital assets during his marriage to Ms. Lu Zhaoyu. It has seriously infringed upon Ms. Lu Zhaoyu's legal rights. We have applied to the court for property preservation, and 30 minutes ago, the property was legally sealed. You are required to clear your personal belongings and vacate within 24 hours. Otherwise, the court will enforce the eviction. Relevant legal documents have been simultaneously mailed to your registered address at Ishian. The smile on Song Yuro's face froze completely. Her phone clattered to the ground, the screen shattering. She whipped her head around to look at Shenmo, her voice distorted with extreme fear and anger. Shenmo, our apartment has been sealed. The lawyer said it was Lu Zhaoyu who filed the lawsuit. They said it was your marital property. What's going on? Wasn't that a gift you gave me? Shenmo was also stunned. He hadn't anticipated my counterattack to be so direct, so swift, and aimed precisely at what Song Yuro cared about most. The surroundings fell into complete silence, all eyes fixed on this sudden drama. Song Yuro rushed over, grabbing Shenmo's arm and shaking it violently. Say something. Didn't you say everything was taken care of? The apartment is in my name. How can she have it sealed? I don't care. You fix this. I can't lose that apartment. It's mine. Shenmo, irritated by her shaking, roughly shook off her hand and growled. Shut up, aren't you embarrassed enough already? Song Yuru's sanity snapped, and tears streamed down her face, smudging her makeup. What embarrassment am I causing? It was you who said you'd divorce her and marry me. Give me the best. Now what? The company is about to collapse, and we've lost the house. Shenmo, you liar. What about my car, my jewelry? Will they be seized too? His words publicly confirmed Shenmo's infidelity and asset transfer during the marriage. The surrounding whispers turned into open discussions and contemptuous gazes. Shenmo's forehead veins bulged, and he wished he could cover Song Yuru's mouth. I quietly watched this drama unfold and spoke at the right moment, my voice clearly reaching everyone's ears. Miss Song, no need to worry about your car and jewelry, the pink Porsche 918. Right, and the Tiffany yellow diamond set in your safe, a Cartier full diamond bracelet, and 7 Hermes bags. Hung Tai's lawyers should already be compiling the inventory and preservation applications. After all, using my Lu Zhaoyu's money to support someone else always has to be repaid. Song Yuru was struck like lightning, staggering back a step, her eyes filled with resentment and fear as she looked at me. Shenmo suddenly turned to me, his eyes bloodshot. Lu Zhaoyu, do you have to be so ruthless? I met his gaze, letting coldness and sharpness out without reservation for the first time. Silence, when you held her hand, pregnant with her, and announced she was your true wife. Did you think of leaving me any room? When you used our marital money to buy her a house, a car, jewelry, did you think that was ruthless? I stepped closer to him, my voice not loud but each word like a knife. This is just the beginning. You really do care. Every single thing you used to please your new love and trample on me, I will take back one by one, including mine. My gaze swept over the ashen Song Yuru and finally landed on Shenmo's face. That Mrs. Shen title you cherish so much, the excuse you used to abandon me. Aren't you in true love? Aren't you going to be righteous? I tilted my head slightly, showing a cold smile. Then let me see, without the Shen family's wealth, without these luxuries, can your so-called true love still continue to be righteous? With that, I didn't look at them again, turning to walk calmly towards the main table of the auction hall under countless shocked, excited, and Qin Yu and Lawyer Ju followed closely behind like the most loyal guards. Behind them, the sound of Song Yuro's and Shenmo's echoed, mixed with the undisguised pointing and mocking whispers of the surrounding crowd. The banquet hall remained dazzling, but some people had already been forever nailed to the pillar of shame, becoming the newest, hottest, and most disgraceful joke in the circle. The auctioneer's hammer was about to fall. While my auction had just struck its first hammer, the drama at the charity gala was like a drop of water splashing into a pan of oil, instantly exploding and shaking the entire circle. The next day, various detailed and vivid versions of the story spread like wildfire in private groups, tea parties, and beauty salons. Shenmo's extramarital affair and asset transfer. Song Yuro's luxury items bought with the original wife's money. Lu Jiaoyu being the heir to a top-tier wealthy family, and Shen Mo being publicly humiliated by his ex-wife, each keyword was enough to keep the idle rich wives and socialites gossiping endlessly. Within a few days, Shen Group's reputation plummeted to rock bottom. The few hesitant potential partners completely cut off contact, and bank collection calls almost overwhelmed Shen Mo's phone and the company's main line. Employees began to leave in large numbers. The atmosphere was one of panic. Shen Mo locked himself in his office, smoking countless packs of cigarettes, his eyes bloodshot, his chin covered in dark stubble, staring at the glaring green screen of his computer and the constant stream of bad news popping up. He felt for the first time what it truly meant to be at the end of the road, but what chilled him even more than the business's dire situation was the change in Song Euro. After the apartment was seized, Song Euro had to temporarily move into Shen Mo's old apartment in the old city area, which was under mortgage and could be taken by the bank at any time, resulting in a huge environmental contrast. She spent her days crying and complaining incessantly. After the public humiliation at the banquet, she vented all her resentment on Shen Mo. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't sworn you could handle Lu Jiaoyu, that old hag, I wouldn't have followed you. Now look, I've become the laughingstock of the whole city. The house is gone. The car is about to be gone. And even those jewels and bags. I got the law firm's documents yesterday. They even listed a Chanel wallet I left at my mom's place. Shen Mo, are you even a man? Can you just stand there and let that bitch bully me like this? Shen Mo, enough. If it weren't for you constantly whispering in bed, rushing for a title, would I have announced it at that? Besides, those things shouldn't have been taken in the first place. Now that we've been caught, who can you blame? Shouldn't have taken. Song Yuru, you were the one who said you'd give them to me. You said it. Lu Jiaoyu doesn't deserve the good things. Only I do. Now that something has happened, you want to back out. Shen Mo, I'm still carrying your child in my belly." Mentioning the child slightly tempered Shen Mo's anger, but it was soon drowned out by a deeper exhaustion. This child, once a source of great anticipation for him, now felt like a heavy burden and a bitter irony. Just then, Shen Mo's private phone rang. It was a call from his most trusted financial director. The voice on the other end was choked with tears and panic. "Boss Shen, something terrible has happened. The company's account, the last 5 million yuan in our account, the Lifeline funds, have just been transferred out. The transaction record shows it was Miss Song who made the transfer using the authorized supplementary card you gave her before. She also took the $200,000 in cash and several gold bars stored in your safe. The security guard said she rushed to the company just now, looking flustered, and went straight into your office." Shen Mo's head buzzed as if struck by a heavy hammer. He snapped his gaze toward Song Euro. Song Euro's face instantly turned deathly pale, her eyes flickering nervously. She instinctively took a step back, her hand clutching a bulging Hermes bag slung over her shoulder, one of the few bags she had hurriedly retrieved from her mother last night, not yet seized by the lawyers. "You took the company's money, and the cash and gold from my safe." Shen Mo's voice was terrifyingly low as he advanced toward her step by step. I didn't. Don't listen to their nonsense," Song Euro denied frantically. But her tightly guarded bag betrayed her. Shen Mo snatched the bag from her. Song Euro screamed and lunged forward to grab it back. "Give it back, that's mine." Shen Mo shoved her away forcefully. Song Euro stumbled and crashed into the sofa. Shen Mo opened the bag, revealing several bundles of US dollars. Gold bars wrapped in velvet, a few bank cards, and a freshly printed statement showing the successful transfer of a large sum of money. The evidence was conclusive, and Shen Mo, holding the statement and the cash and gold bars from the bag, was trembling, not out of sadness, but from extreme anger and the absurdity of betrayal. "Song Euro, you're really something. The company is about to collapse, and this is the last bit of money I saved to pay the employees for their final month's salary, cover the most basic utilities and property management fees, and avoid immediate bankruptcy liquidation. You actually wanted to abscond with the funds, even taking the hard currency I kept in the office for emergencies." Seeing that the truth was out, Song Euro decided to tear off the mask, rising from the sofa with no trace of weakness left on her face, only twisted greed and resentment. "Abscond? Why would I run? Do you want me to wait and die with you? Shen Mo, look at yourself now. What future do you have? The company's bankruptcy is inevitable. those creditors, those banks will devour you. What benefit could I possibly gain by following you? I'm still young, and I'm carrying a child. I have to plan for myself. Plan for myself. Shinmo let out a bitter laugh, more painful than crying. So you stole the company's lifeline money, stole my personal savings. This is what you call true love. This is the righteousness you so eagerly sought by pushing Lu Jiaoyi aside. Don't mention Lu Jiaoyi to me. Song Yuro reacted like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. If you hadn't failed to investigate her background properly, would we be in this situation today? It's your own fault. Your own incompetence. You couldn't hold on to the company, and you couldn't protect the woman. Now you come to blame me. That money, that gold, was supposed to be the security you promised me and our child. Taking it now is only right and justified. Shunmo's eyes were bloodshot as he grabbed the stacks of US dollars and gold bars and threw them onto the floor. I'm giving you my last bit of flesh and blood as security. Song Yuran, I must have been blind back then, but you're the one who's truly blind. Song Yuran retorted fiercely, pointing her finger at Shunmo's nose and cursing. What do you think you are? Some kind of saint? If it weren't for the fact that you had a few dirty bucks to buy me luxury bags, drive fancy cars, and live in a big house, would I have followed you? Would I have gotten pregnant for you? You're no better than Lu Xiaoyue's spineless ex-wife. Now that the money's gone, you're even worse than a spineless loser. The two of them, in the chaotic living room of their old apartment, were like two trapped beasts, fiercely hurling insults at each other, exposing the most despicable calculations and ugliest truths. The once rosy bubbles of true love and soulmates were shattered by reality and self-interest, revealing the cold, dirty core of their transactional relationship. Neither of them noticed the small device disguised as an air purifier in the corner of the sofa, quietly working to clearly record and transmit every word of their conversation filled with resentment, greed, and betrayal. Meanwhile, in the audiovisual room of Nanshan Yunqi Manor, a massive screen was divided into dozens of small screens, connected to various high-end private clubs, beauty salons, VIP rooms, and entertainment lounges in luxury homes across the city. The guests invited to watch were the same high society attendees who had openly mocked or coldly ignored Lu Jiaoyu at the Shun Corporation's anniversary celebration and on multiple other occasions. Among them was Zhao Tian, who had once sent me a kind reminder, now sitting in one of the club's private rooms, his screen showing the live footage and audio of Shun Mo and Song Yuran's argument. I sat in the main seat of the audiovisual room, holding a glass of juice, quietly watching the screen. Shun Mo and Song Yuran's argument had escalated into physical violence. Seeing Song Yuran's face twisted with greed and anger, Shun Mo thought of how he had abandoned his wife and alienated his family for her, even ruining his business. A surge of immense regret and disgust rose within him, and he raised his hand to slap Song Yuran hard across the face. The crisp sound of the slap echoed, and even through the screen, the force seemed palpable. Song Yuran's head jerked to the side, and a red mark instantly appeared on her face. She froze for a second, then screamed and lunged at Shun Mo, clawing wildly at his face and neck with her nails. How dare you hit me, Shun Mo, you bastard, I'm going to fight you. You've ruined my face, my future. Shun Mo's face and neck were immediately marked with bloody scratches. He winced in pain, grabbed Song Yuran's wrist, and the two of them began to wrestle, knocking over the coffee table, cups, and ashtray, which shattered into pieces, leaving a mess. The expensive suits and exquisite dresses were wrinkled and soiled in the struggle. Return the money and see the person, Shun Mo roared. Never. It's mine, all mine. You owe me my house, my car, my jewelry. Song Yuro cried out, completely losing her usual delicate image, looking like a madwoman. During the scuffle, Song Yuro's stomach was accidentally bumped by Shun Mo, and she cried out in pain. Crouching down, Shun Mo's movements stiffened, a complex expression flashed across his face. But seeing the scattered US dollars and gold bars on the ground, that complexity was immediately replaced by icy rage. He bent down to pick them up, but Song Yuro clung tightly to his leg, clawing and biting. The scene was unsightly, the sounds filthy and piercing. The viewing locations were first deathly silent, then erupted with suppressed exclamations, sneers, and discussions. My God, this is Shun Mo, abandoning his wife and child for true love. It's like two fishwives fighting over vegetables in the market. What did Song Yuro just say? That she followed Shin-mo for his money? Oh, this is truly heartfelt. Shin-mo actually hit a woman so hard. TSK, I really misjudged him before. They deserve each other. A pair of scumbags. Miss Liu did a great job. This is more satisfying than slapping them in the face directly. Look, Song Yuro's bag seems to be a rare Hermes leather. Still thinking about the bag at this time. So, when choosing a woman, one must look at her background. Meeting someone like Miss Liu is so reassuring. These women who rely on Captain Se are like birds flying apart when disaster strikes, even biting back. It's terrifying. Zhao Tian sat in the club's private room, watching the screen where Song Yuro, whom he had secretly envied and even somewhat flattered, was so disheveled and ugly. Recalling the subtle sense of superiority and sympathy he had occasionally shown towards Lu Jiaoyi in the past, his face burned, and his heart was filled with lingering fear. Fortunately, at that time, I only sent a message, didn't say anything too excessive. Is it listening or understanding? Qin Yu stood behind me, whispering, reporting, Miss, the signal is clear, all designated locations are receiving normally. The hidden box tech team has confirmed that the source has been encrypted and disguised multiple times. Untraceable. I nodded, my gaze still fixed on the screen. Where Shin-mo had finally broken free, Song Yuro picked up most of the cash and gold bars, but her face and neck were covered in bruises. Her suit was torn, while Song Yuro sat on the ground, her hair disheveled, her makeup a mess, her gown's shoulder strap broken, clutching her stomach and crying softly while cursing. Where was the slightest trace of her former gentle and delicate demeanor? It was truly a spectacular performance. I picked up the control tablet beside me and gently tapped it. On the screens of the various viewing locations, the live footage gradually faded, replaced by a line of simple and elegant artistic text, with the background being the emblem of Yunqi Manor. Thank you for watching. The purity test of true love failed. Yunqi Lu family, choose your partner carefully, think thrice before you act. The screen finally froze on these two lines of text, then went completely dark. I knew that after tonight, everything Shin-mo and Song Yuro had built in this city, their reputation, image, social connections, and even the last shred of dignity, would be completely obliterated by this live broadcast of their ugly mutual destruction. I turned off the main screen in front of me, stood up, and called out, Qin Yu. I walked towards the door, notify Lawyer Ju and Hung Tai to officially initiate criminal reporting procedures against Song Yuro for transferring and hiding assets, as well as possible credit card fraud, submit the evidence, including the legally edited version of the recording and footage just now. Yes, miss. I walked to the window, gazing at the dazzling yet cold city lights below, watching Shin-mo and Song Yuro on the screen. My heart remained unmoved. Did you think tearing each other apart was the deepest despair? No, the cage of the law and complete social death are the best destinies for your so-called true love. The game isn't over yet. The auction for the Shun Group headquarters building was scheduled for a gloomy Thursday morning. This 32-story glass curtain-walled tower, once a symbol of the Shun family's glory and Shin-mo's ambition, was now shrouded in a layer of grey, decaying shadow. Much like the fate of its owner, the auction was held in the banquet hall of the five-star hotel next door to the building, perhaps a final act of dignity, or perhaps a kind of ruthless irony. When I arrived, a crowd had already gathered outside the banquet hall, financial reporters drawn by the news, gloating competitors, former Shun Group employees with numb expressions, and all sorts of people who had come purely for the spectacle. Seeing me step out of the black Bentley and walk over accompanied by Qin Yu and two solemn-faced lawyers carrying briefcases, the crowd automatically parted to make way, all eyes focused on me, and whispers rose and fell like waves. Today, I wore a sharply tailored charcoal grey women's suit and skirt, my hair meticulously pinned up, my face adorned with light yet exquisite makeup, my gaze calm, and my step steady. I wasn't here to show off. I was here to claim the spoils of war and, more importantly, to carry out the sentence. Stepping into the banquet hall, I saw that many people were already seated. There weren't many bidders, but each carried significant weight. Representatives from several capable asset management companies and real estate groups. My seat was arranged in the best position, front and center, As I sat down, I could feel appraising gazes from all directions. Probing, evaluating, awed, and complex, Shenmo sat not far away in a corner to the side. A spot reserved for debtors or parties related to the property rights. He wore a slightly worn suit, his beard shaved, but the bloodshot eyes and deep wrinkles couldn't be hidden. His hands were clenched tightly on his knees, knuckles white, his back stiff as a rock. Since the live-streamed brawl scandal in the apartment that day, he had fallen completely silent, like a body drained of its soul. Song Euro didn't show up. It was said she was under investigation and released on bail pending further inquiry for suspected theft and asset transfer, but she had been restricted from leaving the city. The child in her womb, once Shenmo's great hope, had miscarried not long after the scuffle and collision. The official story was that it was an accident, but those in the know understood the truth. The auctioneer stepped onto the stage and began introducing the subject of the auction: the full property rights of the Shun Group headquarters building and its attached land. The starting bid was 850 million. Compared to the valuation at the peak of Shun Group's prosperity, this price had been slashed again and again. Yet, for Shenmo and the Shun family in their current state, it remained an unfillable abyss. The proceeds from this auction would first be used to repay bank and secured debts. Only what remained would go to other creditors and Shenmo personally, and that remainder was likely to be minimal. The bidding began. The initial raises were cautious, with several bidders taking turns raising their paddles, slowly pushing the price up to 930 million. Shenmo's head hung even lower. Each bid seemed to lash at him like a whip. When the price hovered around 950 million, I slightly turned my head and nodded to Lawyer Ju beside me. Lawyer Ju calmly raised paddle number 66. The auctioneer's eyes lit up. Number 66 bids 1 billion. The hall fell silent, then erupted in a wave of murmurs. A direct jump of 50 million showed both unwavering determination and formidable financial strength. The other bidders whispered among themselves, glancing in my direction, their eyes now filled with calculation. Most of them had likely come with a casual mindset or were only interested in certain assets. Faced with such a strong and determined opponent, they needed to reconsider the cost. After a brief silence, a representative from another real estate group gritted his teeth and raised the bid by 2 million. Lawyer Ju remained expressionless, raising his paddle once more. Lot 66, 1.05 billion, another significant jump in price. At this point, even the last hesitant bidder shook his head and put down his paddle. This price was close to, or even exceeded, some people's psychological upper limit for this asset in the current market. More importantly, no one was willing or saw the need to go head-to-head with the representative of Yunqi Lu Group. Doing so would not only mean a potentially unwise financial move but also the risk of unknown consequences. The auctioneer scanned the room. 1.05 billion, going once. 1.05 billion, going twice. His gavel was raised, about to fall. Wait. A hoarse voice suddenly rang out. Shenmo, sitting in the corner, abruptly stood up. Her face was deathly pale, her chest heaving violently. Her eyes were fixed on me, filled with a final surge of unwillingness, humiliation, and a hint of desperate madness. Instantly, all eyes in the room turned to her. My voice is dry and trembling, Shenmo said. I respectfully request a suspension of the auction. I have a new financing plan. I can, Mr. Shun. The auctioneer interrupted him politely but coldly. According to the court ruling and the rules of this auction, as the debtor, once the assets have entered the judicial auction process, you no longer have the right to apply for a suspension or termination of the auction. The only exception is if you can provide equivalent cash on the spot or obtain valid guarantees with the written consent of all major creditors. Can you provide that? Shenmo stood frozen, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Cash? He couldn't even come up with 1 million now. Guarantees? Which creditor would still trust him? His final struggle seemed so pale and laughable in the face of the cold, unyielding procedures. The auctioneer no longer looked at him, his gaze sweeping over the other bidders. 1.05 billion, going once. Third, I bid 1 billion, Shenmo shouted with all his strength, his eyes bloodshot, like a trapped beast with no way out. He knew this price was likely far beyond the actual value and that he couldn't possibly afford it, but he couldn't bear it, couldn't bear to watch everything he had been so effortlessly crushed and taken away by Lu Jiao. This wasn't about saving his assets anymore, but about clinging to the last pitiful shred of meaningless dignity. However, his desperate shout only brought even more obvious silence and looks of pity from the crowd, and even the auctioneer frowned. "Mr. Shun, please maintain order in the venue. Your bid is invalid because you do not have the ability to pay, which constitutes malicious bidding and disrupts the normal process. Security, please maintain order." Two venue security guards immediately stepped forward and stood beside Shen Mo, not making any moves but clearly conveying a sense of intimidation. Shen Mo swayed, his last bit of strength drained, and he slumped back into his chair, covering his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking violently as he let out a suppressed, animalistic sob. "It's over, all over." His final futile resistance only added another layer of ugliness and absurdity before his complete defeat. The auctioneer didn't delay any further, bringing the gavel down heavily. "Sold. Congratulations to bidder number 66 for successfully acquiring the item at a price of 105 billion. Sparse applause broke out, mixed with more complex gazes. Lawyer Ju got up to handle the subsequent procedures. I slowly stood up and walked toward the man slumped in the chair. The sound of my high heels clicking on the marble floor was clear in the now silent hall. I stopped in front of Shen Mo. He slowly lowered his hands and looked up at me with a face full of bloodshot eyes and tear stains, his gaze empty yet seemingly gathering the last faint glimmer of light. It was a plea, a humble hope, wishing I would remember the last shred of old affection. I looked down at him, my voice calm and unwavering, clearly reaching his ears and those of every person around who had pricked up theirs. "Shen Mo, from now on, everything tangible and intangible left of this building and this company, including the once famous name Shun Group, now belongs to the Lu family." Qin Yu, I turned and ordered to notify our affiliated Junyu Property Management to immediately take over all security, cleaning, and facility management of this building. As for the remaining employees, follow the previous Human Resources Assessment Plan, retain core technical and management personnel, and handle the rest according to laws and regulations. "Yes, miss," Qin Yu responded promptly, immediately taking out his communication device to begin issuing instructions. I then looked at the slumped Shen Mo. "As for you, Shen Mo, you will have 24 hours to clear out your personal belongings. Anything left uncleared after that will be treated as waste. Additionally, regarding your personal illegal guarantees and misappropriation of company funds, Hung Tai's lawyers will continue to pursue your legal liabilities on behalf of the new property owner. Take care of yourself." With that, I no longer looked at him and turned to leave. "Lu Jiaoyu." Shen Mo let out a broken, abandoned cry behind me. I didn't stop walking. "Please." His voice grew even lower, tinged with desperation. "For the sake of the past 3 years, give me a way out. I can't carry so much debt." I stopped walking but didn't turn around. "A way out." My voice finally carried a clear, cold edge. "Shen Mo, when you and Song Euro stood on stage and announced she was the true Mrs. Shen, did you give me a way out? When you used our marital assets to support her and made me a laughingstock, did you ever think about my way out? The past 3 years." I slowly turned around, piercing him with a cold gaze one last time. The last bit of hope I clung to was the most humiliating, suffocating, and least memorable 3 years of my life, Lu Xiaoyue's life. If you hadn't brought it up, I might have almost forgotten. So don't talk to me about the past, it's not worth mentioning. Your debts are yours to bear, your path is yours to walk, it has nothing to do with me. I strode forward without any hesitation, heading toward the banquet hall exit. Qin Yu and the lawyers followed closely behind. Behind me came the sound of Shen Mo's completely broken, wailing cries, along with the cold, impatient voices of security guards asking him to leave. Stepping out of the hotel, the sky remained overcast. As I got into the car, I let out a long sigh, as if expelling the last traces of that foul air. "Miss, back to the manor?" Qin Yu asked. "No, I'm looking out the window at the building that's about to change hands, heading to the company. It's now our company." The car started, and I took out my phone, dialing Ju the lawyer's number. After completing the procedures, Ju will issue 2 announcements. The first, in the name of the new property owner, Jiaoyu Capital, announces the completion of the acquisition. The building will be renamed Jiaoyu Center, and a comprehensive upgrade and renovation plan will be launched. The second, my eyes completely cooled down, in my personal name, authorized Hengtai and Anhe Box. Information Group to conduct anonymous technical processing on the evidence materials I have about Shunmo's all violations, gray areas, and possible legal bottom lines in the business process, excluding the part that has been submitted for reporting, to ensure that it circulates within a certain range, such as within specific regulatory authorities and major creditors, where it cannot be ignored. I want to ensure that he has no place to stand in all serious business arenas in this industry, in this country. The only way left for him is to struggle in a lower, darker place, or to leave completely. Okay, Miss Ju. The lawyer's voice showed no fluctuation, as if just confirming an ordinary schedule would be handled properly. After hanging up the phone, I leaned back in my chair. Shunmo, Song Yuru, this betrayal drama that you started finally ended with you losing everything, dignity, and a ruined future. While my empire is just beginning to rise, the acquisition is not the end, but the ultimate judgment on you. Shunmo, standing in front of the panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows of the top-floor office of Jiaoyu Center, formerly Shun's building, now named after me, Jiaoyu Center. I overlook the slowly flowing city lights below, the height of the 32nd floor completely stepping on the once admired view. The office decor was completely redesigned according to my preferences, simple and modern, full of power, with no unnecessary embellishments, yet every detail exudes undeniable heritage and control. The acquisition has been completed for 3 months. In these 3 months, Beyond Capital has been operating like a precise machine at high speed, stripping away the bad, restructuring high-quality business assets, and injecting new funds and strategic directions. The once shaky remnants of Shun's body gradually came to life under the new brand and management, and even began to emerge in some emerging fields. Several capable generals sent by my father Lu Yi from overseas have also arrived, silently helping me sort out the even larger family business network, allowing me to think and lay out from a higher dimension. Lawyer Ju knocked and entered, placing several documents that required final signatures on my desk. Miss, the final cooperation agreement with Hongyuan Construction regarding the new district landmark project has been personally signed by Mr. Li, with very favorable terms. Additionally, the acquisition of the new energy laboratory in Europe has passed the final round of due diligence and can be signed at any time. Mr. Lu Yi just called, saying that you handled it very well, and he will return to the country next month, hoping to have dinner with you. I nodded, signed my name on the documents, and told my father that I would wait for him, and I would arrange the restaurant. Lawyer Ju smiled and agreed, then withdrew. Qin Yu came in later to report. She now, besides being in charge of my security, also assists in handling some special information channels. Miss, regarding the recent situation of Shunmo and Song Yuro, her voice was as calm and emotionless as ever. Shunmo is working as a laborer at the core construction site in the west of the city, mainly moving building materials and cleaning construction waste. In the legal proceedings followed by Hengtai, it has been confirmed that he has no executable assets, and he has been listed as a dishonest, restricted from high consumption, and unable to take planes or high-speed trains. He tried to borrow money or find work through old friends and distant relatives, but was basically turned away, and currently rents a basement in a village in the city near the construction site. Song Yuro is accused of theft and asset transfer, and the prosecution has filed a public lawsuit. Due to solid evidence and a large amount, the ordinary lawyer she hired failed to secure a suspended sentence, and she was sentenced to 2 years in prison in the first instance. She has appealed, but the possibility of overturning the case is very low. During the pre-trial detention, she had a miscarriage, and her physical and mental state is very poor. Her mother tried to sell the last valuable items in the house to help her, but it was like trying to put out a fire with a cup of water. Qin Yu paused and added, additionally, as per your instructions, the technical processing information about Shunmo's commercial violations has taken effect, and at least 3 small and medium-sized enterprises he previously tried to contact for management positions have explicitly rejected him. After background checks, The jobs he can now access are mostly concentrated in physically demanding labor that does not require background checks. I listened, my gaze still fixed on the dazzling night view outside the window, my heart unmoved, and not even much satisfaction. Just a kind of indifferent acceptance of what was to come. Their fate was written the moment Shin Mo chose betrayal and Song Yuro chose greed. All I did was speed up the hands of fate and ensure that the bottom of the pit they fell into was filled with the rubble they themselves had thrown. I know, I replied indifferently, no need to pay special attention unless they try to approach my safety distance. Otherwise, let them be. Yes, Chin Yu complied and handed over a delicate velvet box. Additionally, this was found in the manor's storeroom during the inventory, discovered by Aunt Wen. It should be something left behind by Madame Mingjin for you. I took the box and opened it. Inside wasn't jewelry, but an old leather-bound photo album and a letter. The album contained photos of my mother when she was young, some capturing her travels around the world, her vibrant and confident gaze shining through. Others were of her and my father, standing at the foot of a snow-capped mountain or in front of an ancient library. My father's gaze at my mother was focused and tender, a stark contrast to his ruthless decisiveness in the business world. The last few pages held photos of my childhood with my mother, and a faded family portrait of the three of us. My father held me, my mother leaned on his shoulder, their smiles overflowing with happiness. The letter was in my mother's handwriting, written on special gilded stationery. The date was from the time before her illness worsened. When you read this letter, Mom might already be gone. Don't be sad. Mom has loved, been loved, strived, and enjoyed peace. Having you made my life complete. There are no regrets. Leaving these assets to you is not a burden, but wings. Mom knows you dislike conflict and have a strong character, which is why I agreed to your choice of a seemingly ordinary life. But I also know that my daughter carries the blood of the Liu family and me, with resilience, wisdom, and principles. These riches and power should be in the hands of someone like you, who is clear-hearted, respects others, and knows how to defend. About your father, he didn't stop loving us. His world was just too vast, his responsibilities too heavy, some paths he had to walk alone. What he gave us was a fortress free from worries and the greatest freedom of choice. Don't blame his absence. His love for you might be clumsy, but it runs deep like the sea. The man in this photo is the real him. If you ever get the chance, tell him for me that I never regretted anything. Finally, remember, Zhao Yu, the throne is not the goal but a tool. Use it to protect what you want to protect, create what you want to create, and experience more of the world's beauty. Don't be bound by hatred, don't dwell on the past. You deserve all the light and love, always loving you. Mom. The edges of the letter paper were slightly crumpled from my grip, my eyes slightly moist, but my mouth curved upward involuntarily. Mom, you knew all along, you knew what I might go through, and you believed I could overcome it. I believe it too. I carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the box. The album I held in my hands, gently tracing the young faces of my parents in the photos. The last traces of gloom and stifling feelings from the past 3 years were washed away by this long-awaited understanding and profound love. I didn't become strong to prove anything to anyone. I was always meant to shine. Mom gave me life and wings, and now I can finally soar freely without any burden. A few days later, I attended an international forum on technology and humanities as the founder of Zhao Yu Capital and the representative of Yunqi Road, delivering a brief speech. The content of my speech was not about revenge or business competition, but about inheritance and innovation, the warmth and responsibility of capital. As I stood on the stage, confidently and calmly presenting my views and answering sharp questions, the audience below, composed of elites from various fields, listened intently, and the flashbulbs kept lighting up. But this time, what was illuminated was no longer the labels of Shun Mo's ex-wife or the discarded wife of a wealthy family, but the capabilities, vision, and strength that the name Lu Zhaoyu itself represented. After the event, at the reception, people kept approaching to chat and exchange business cards, seeking collaboration. I handled the interactions gracefully, maintaining appropriate distance and poise. Zhao Tian also came over, hovering at the edge of a small group, his face plastered with an overly enthusiastic, even obsequious smile, trying to apologize and explain for past events. I simply smiled, listened to him, then raised my glass and lightly clinked it with his, saying, "It's all in the past," before naturally turning to chat with another academician, leaving him awkwardly standing there. Some rifts are destined to be irreparable, and some people are no longer in the same world. During a break in the event, I stepped out onto the balcony to get some fresh air, and Chinyu followed closely. Standing at a distance that was neither too close nor too far, Mr. Lu Yi sent a message 10 minutes ago. His private jet has landed. He asks what cuisine you'd like for tomorrow's dinner, he said. He'll cook this time. Chinyu's voice carried an almost imperceptible hint of amusement. I thought of the photo in the album of my father bustling around in a vacation cottage kitchen, wearing an apron and looking flustered, and I smiled, telling her it could be anything. Just not the experimental dish she once tried to make for my mother that ended up burnt. Understood, Chinyu replied, lowering her head to operate her phone. The evening breeze caressed my face, carrying the coolness of early autumn and the unique vitality of the city. I gazed at the distant skyline, where starlight mingled with city lights. At this moment, Shenmo might be gnawing on a cold steamed bun with cold water, calculating in a damp basement whether tomorrow's wages would be enough to cover next month's rent. Song Yuro might be regretting bitterly behind cold iron bars, feeling as if every day were a year. But so what? Their love and hatred, their struggles and downfall, have long since become dust. Scattered in the corners of my world, unable to stir even the slightest ripple, my world is the vast expanse of stars and city lights before me. The business map I am building, the upcoming dinner with my father, the infinite possibilities described in my mother's letters. And every tomorrow that I choose and control myself, I am no longer anyone else, no longer punishing myself for anyone's mistakes. I am Lu Jiaoyu, the daughter of Lu Mingzhen and Lu Yi, the heir of the Yunqi Lu family, the controller of Jiaoyu Capital, and the sole queen of my own life. Chinyu's phone vibrated again. She glanced at it, took half a step forward, and whispered, "Miss, just received a trivial follow-up message. Shenmo got into a dispute at the construction site and was injured. The foreman deducted 3 days of his wages as compensation and medical expenses. He tried to report it to the police, but the process wasn't smooth. I didn't even raise an eyebrow. I picked up the already chilled champagne in my hand, raised it toward the night sky, the city, and all the past and future, and gently toasted. Then, I slowly poured the wine into the exquisite flower pot by the balcony, dedicating it to the past that had died and nurturing the throne of the new ruler. Let's go back. I turned around. The dark green skirt swayed with a decisive arc. Tomorrow there are many things to tell Aunt Wen. I want her to stew bird's nest tonight. Miss, I took a step forward, walking into the dazzling and warm light behind me, never looking back. The end.